So for those who are not aware, here is a channel on YouTube, and it's called Arte.tv documentary. It's like a French-owned channel that runs different documentaries around the world. However, there is this documentary that it ran on the Malian crisis. And so I want to show you something so you can see where I'm taking it to. So here's the video. Now you can see that I'm showing you Mali resistance against the Wagner. Now this documentary was a documentary that was carried out by French so-called documentarians, right? But this time around, something very, very funny happened. Imagine that in this particular documentary where it says that Mali resistance against Wagner. So in this documentary, you find out that it is the Islamist terrorists, the ones who actually we've always known to be terrorists, that these so-called documentarians interviewed, met, and then are now telling us that these so-called terrorists are actually the freedom fighters. It is of a truth, as they say, that one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist, and one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. So all of a sudden, just because France has been hosted, and then now France now is now said to be, using another medium now, using their French propaganda. Now here's the response from David Udenya, and it's very, very clear, as very clear as possible for you to get it. I want you to watch it and see the outcome.
The conflict in Mali between the Mali government and the Al-Qaeda, ISIS, terrorists who are operating there, according to France, these Al-Qaeda, ISIS terrorists are the resistance.
You get it there. You get it. You see how I put it. I need to take it back for you so that you can actually get it. You can actually get it. The terrorist, it says, France are now actually calling the resistance. So you see how they switch it now. All of a sudden, when the power is no longer in your hand, the people who were once known as terrorists, Al-Qaeda, the ISIS, something that is generally known as terrorists, people who are generally known as terrorists are now the resistance.
The conflict in Mali between the Mali government and the Al-Qaeda, ISIS, terrorists who are operating there, according to France, these Al-Qaeda, ISIS terrorists are the resistance, and they are resisting the Malian government and its Russian allies' attempts to douse the fanatic flames that have been set across the continent. Where do you stand on that? Can you tell us more?
Well, so I think this was 2 days ago, a documentary that was produced by a French government mouthpiece, ARTE, as you said, framed or made an attempt to frame the conflict in Mali as a conflict between this dictatorial regime and a group of freedom fighters who are fighting for an independent homeland and yada, yada, yada. Meanwhile, anyone who's followed this conflict for longer than 5 minutes knows that these elements that the French government's mouthpiece is trying to cast as freedom fighters are terrorists by the textbook definition of the term terrorist. As you said, yes. Elements of Al-Qaeda and ISIS, elements of JNIM. This is what France is now attempting to typecast as some classic African governments versus rebel conflict. Even the use of terminology is very telling. At no point through that documentary was the word terrorist used, even though that's what these people clearly are, or the word Islamists, even though that's clearly what they are and claim to be. Instead, the word used to describe them is rebels, which is a loaded term because it's inferring that there is some sort of historical or ideological position that they are defending, and that the Malian government is, in some way in the wrong here. If you watch that documentary, you can't come away with any other conclusion. And this is how this is being framed. And what this tells me is that from the very start, the existence of these supposed terrorist entities in the Sahel, I think it's fair to say now that we could say with some measure of finality that the very existence of these groups in Sahel was at least in some form down to the French government.
There you have it. we already know that it is French sponsored. In case you are trying to see or you want to confirm for yourself, what you need to do is come here. You see it, Mali's resistance right here. You see it, Mali resistance against Wagner. Okay, sorry, Mali. He's talking about Mali, then resistance against Wagner, meaning right there in Mali, there is a particular resistance group against the Wagner allies. Ever since France was hosted out of Mali began to have the support of the Russians, and so the Wagner folks are already known to have Russian origins, and they are more like they are operating. It's like Russian proxy operators, and so they are helping the Mali government fight against these terrorists, these ISIS, the Al Qaeda and co, to get them out of their soil. But here it is that the French government is now trying to reframe the whole thing, because it has lost hold in both Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and so on. So it's up to us now. When we go through documentaries too, we should actually go through these documentaries, especially documentaries that have to do with Africa, and observe it and go through it with suspicious eyes. It's very important, because these days the media can be very tricky, and it is up to us now to check out what we consume, because if we are not very scrutinous of what we consume, at the end of the day we'll find ourselves falling for wrong propagandas that are very misleading, and then at the end of the day have us turning our backs on each other. Like the video I posted yesterday on the new boycott that's taking place in United States of America in the black community. When you check it very well, you see that it has been traced down to 1978, and then the whole root cause didn't just start today. So if we begin to look at these things and then become very sensitive at these things, we'll be very cautious and even more precautionary, and we'll be able to prepare ourselves for any of these things. I wish you all the best, and see you again next time.